Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are finally looking at the 1/6 scale collectible Deadpool figure from Hot Toys, which I'm sure many of you are very excited to see, and I have to say, I'm pretty excited as well. But I have to preface this video by stating that if you are one of those people that don't want to hear anything negative about the figure, then this is not going to be the video for you, because even though this figure is exceptionally good in most cases, there are things we need to talk about. That is the point of the review, so that's what we're going to do. So if you don't want to hear those things, you might as well click away now, because we're not going to hide any of the problems. We're going to talk about all of it, the good and the bad. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This figure stands just about, just over 1 foot, about 1 foot and 1/4 of an inch, and that puts him right around 31 centimeters, pretty close to that. So I think the scaling's pretty good. Maybe slightly tall, but not enough to worry about. I think it'll be fine, especially as soon as you pose him at all, that slight difference is just going to disappear, so it doesn't really matter. Now, before we get into the guts of this figure, let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories. We of course have his 2 katanas, which come with the scabbard, which is magnetic, and it connects to his back pretty well. It's not exceptionally tight, but it works well enough, so that's a good thing. We do have his 2 pistols, which do allow you to rack the slide back, so that's pretty cool, and you can pull out the magazines, so that's a nice detail. They look really nice. The pistols, of course, will fit into the holsters on his thighs. We also have a knife, which is very well done, and that will go into his boot. We have these 2 little dagger thingies, which are generally the kind of thing you find hidden behind a belt or something like that. However, I don't remember him using them in the movie, and there's no way for him to hold them. There's no place for them to go on the figure unless you're just going to tuck them in somewhere, so it's a very strange accessory. We have a total of 5 different sets of eyes, which are all magnetic and interchangeable, and you can combine them however you like. Interestingly enough, though, there are 3 sets that are basically neutral eyes. We have one slightly wider open neutral eye, we have a standard neutral eye, and then we have a slightly squinted neutral eye. Then we have one that's an expressive set where the eyes kind of curl up, which are nice. Then we have one set which have the eyes slightly larger than the large neutral eye. I feel like it's nice to have the interchangeable eyes. However, it would have been nice to have one set that were like really big and round, since he makes that face a lot, and having 3 that are basically all the same neutral set, kind of a bummer. I mean, it's not really necessary. You can't really change the look by having a bunch of different neutral eyes. I will say they do look nice for the most part. I love the way the eyes are nice and glossy. However, they don't fit as well as I would have preferred. They fit well enough, but you can see that the black kind of sticks out over the red in some cases, so it's not necessarily the best situation. He does come with a magnetic tool for removing the eyes, and most of the time it works pretty well, but every once in a while you'll get the eyes kind of stuck in there due to the plastic being wedged in, so you might have to just push on them or pull on them with your fingers to get them out. For the hands, we have the 2 fist hands, 2 sword or knife gripping hands, 2 gun gripping hands, 2 pointing finger hands, a thumbs up and an OK hand, and then 2 style pose hands for various poses. Lastly, we have the display stand, which is kind of good and kind of terrible at the same time. It's a little strange because the upright is too tall for it to hold him up in just a standard pose. If you want to just have him stand there, which I've seen most Hot Toys collectors do that with their figures, I find it odd that you cannot really support him with the stand unless you really crank on it and bend that upright. The base of the stand looks pretty good. I like most of it, except there was a square film over the center part so that you don't scratch the Deadpool belt buckle logo, but that square film left a square mark on the base, so it does distract a little bit from the looks, but under the right lighting you probably won't notice. And it does have the nice plate across the front in that nice brushed silver type of look. So not bad accessories. I think I like them for the most part. We do have those few issues here and there, but I think that's a pretty good batch of accessories for Deadpool. Now, I have to say, this Deadpool has a lot of really good things about it. I love so many things about it, so I guess we should probably just kind of start with that, and we'll work our way around to the articulation. One of my favorite things about this Deadpool is the head sculpt. I think they absolutely nailed the aesthetic that they were going for. It is just so nicely done. The cloth sculpt work, it doesn't look like sculpt work at all. It looks like it's still cloth. I don't know how they did that. I don't know if they did that by hand, if they did that with a machine. I guess they do everything by hand, but it's incredible. I don't know how they did it so effectively. It's very nicely executed. Looks so good. And then the paintwork on top of that to make it look like dirty cloth, it's just very, very, very well executed. The wrinkles, the texturing, everything about it is just fantastic. I will say that the suit also has a very nice aesthetic to it. I like that it has this kind of gritty, dirty, battle-damaged look to it. We have the screen-accurate little damage spots right here on the chest, but the rest of it has this black, it's not really a wash, it's more of a dry brush effect throughout. We have some scratches and like kind of faux tears and things throughout. It just looks very, very nice. It's appropriate for Deadpool, and I think they did a really good job with that. The suit, for the most part, is also very well executed. There's tons of detail with all the stitch work and paneling and things like that. However, mine, I haven't done anything to this. This is how it came out of the package. We have a, this piece, whatever this is, it kind of looks like it's supposed to be the holster for the little dagger thingy, but it doesn't fit in there. It's not the right shape. This is coming off already, and it came that way, so that's kind of a bummer. But they did a pretty good job adding the shoulder pads on here. They're a separate piece, so they don't really get in the way too much, so that's cool. We have the little straps on the elbows that give a really nice effect, so that's nice. The belt is very well done. We have all of these different components to it to make it look real, and it does. It's very well executed. I like that. It's kind of a bummer that you can see the foam inside there, where they have just black foam to puff up the pouches, but that's okay. It's not the biggest deal. The holsters and things are all real straps, and that looks really cool. You're not supposed to remove them, though, so be aware of that. One thing about the suit that bugs me a little bit is the knee pads. They don't really look like knee pads. They don't look accurate to the movie. I mean, they're the right shape and color and stuff, but they're really just really flat, and they just look like a panel of black vinyl on top of his knees rather than a knee pad. And mine are coming off. And again, I haven't really touched this thing since I got out of the package other than to look it over before the review. So that's a bit of a bummer. The shin guards look really nice. I like that. I like the way they did those. However, the pants, the way they just kind of terminate right here, does look a little bit weird above the ankle. It doesn't quite look screen accurate, and it doesn't look that great. So it's not the best situation. Now, this is the modified version, if you want to call it that, the second issue, because they had the problem with the wrists. I have not had any issues with the wrists. The sleeves are perfectly long. They don't tear or anything when I swap out the hands. Haven't had any problems with that, so I think that's a pretty good thing. This is a kind of a floating belt, by the way. You can adjust that. You can adjust this belt a little bit, but it is sewn on, so be aware of that. But you know, you can get it pretty well posed without hurting the suit too much, and we're going to get to that in a second. We can leave the guns in there. So here's one thing that we need to talk about. And I don't know, I've heard a lot of people say how great this figure is. I've heard some people say it's not as good as it should be, and this is probably one of the reasons why. If you're looking at Deadpool, I don't know how they managed to do this, because this is a new body from what I understand. They put a whole new body together for this guy. He is not the right proportions at all. His hips are far too wide and his chest is slightly too narrow, and that creates a slightly, or not slightly, it creates a pretty obvious disconnect from the on-screen version. Obviously, once you pose him, you won't notice it as much, or if you look at him from the side, it looks almost perfect because you can't tell those issues are there. If you look at him from the back, as long as it's not directly from behind, it looks good. But you can see, even just without even a comparison, how wide the hips are in relation to the torso. It almost looks like they took the legs from a bigger figure and put them on a smaller figure. So that's a big drawback for me. But again, if you're going to pose him, it's not really a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of. So speaking of posing, let's go ahead and talk about the articulation, because this guy's is pretty good. The head, I'm pretty sure it's just a single ball peg, but it moves around really well. You can lean it pretty far forward, you can lean it pretty far back, you can lean it side to side. You can lean the head pretty well. I do wish it didn't have this really thick collar to create that kind of hollow effect in the chest right there, but that's not really that noticeable, especially once it's there. Your eye just kind of adjusts and it's fine, but you can rotate it all the way around, and really I don't have any complaints about that. I really like the way the head works, and it looks very natural pretty much in any pose you put him in, so that's pretty cool. For the shoulders, we have a ball peg that holds it into the torso. There might be a butterfly mixed in there. I haven't taken it apart to look, but here's how it moves around. Without dealing with any of the actual shoulder articulation, you can move the entire arm up and down and side to side and front to back. So pretty much however you want. That's what makes me think there's just a big ball peg in there connected to the ball hinge, which is the shoulder. Now, they tell you not to raise the arm past 45, and you really can't do it. That's about it. That's as far as it's going to go out to the side, which I don't know why they do this. I think they did this for the one Captain America figure, and that is to separate the suit. have the sleeve go up over the shoulder and then have a cutout in the rest of the suit so that it looks like it's just a seam, but the arm is separate. And that would give you really great range of motion, which you just can't get because the suit is too, it's there, it's pulling on it. So it definitely could be better range in that regard, but the good thing is you can bring the arm pretty significantly far forward, at least horizontal, and you don't have to really worry about the suit tearing too much. You'll notice back here it does get kind of tight, but I haven't had any issues at all posing it in that regard, so that's pretty cool. There is a bicep swivel, which works surprisingly well without having to even readjust the fabric. Now, if you want to readjust it, that'll help even more, but it's pretty good. I don't really have any complaints about that. I like the bicep swivel. I like the shoulder movement other than going out to the side. We have a double jointed elbow, which works pretty darn well. I mean, especially for a Hot Toys figure, look at that. It's almost 180. You can almost get it all the way back, so that's really good. I love that they did that. I don't have any problems with that at all. It's fine. For the wrists, I'll go ahead and pop it off and show you. Now, here is one issue. Now, I don't know if this is only for the newer version where they modified the wrists or not. You do have plenty of sleeve in there, so that's not really an issue. But the ball hinges tend to stay with the hands rather than in the forearms. So that can be problematic when you're swapping out the hands, but at least you can see that it has a full ball hinge. However, it sits kind of deep into that wrist, which is molded, so you're going to lose a little bit of range of motion, but it's definitely still enough to get your poses done. And, at least in my experience, you don't really have any risk of ruining the suit, so that's a good thing. Now for the torso, I'm not sure if it's a double or a single ball peg, but we have one at least up here and one down here. Be aware though that this is all one solid suit and these things are all sewn on, so you're not going to end up with that much range, but it does have exceptionally good range, again, for a Hot Toys figure. In fact, when I first opened the package, it was kind of offset, so it looked a little bit weird, but you can pose it around pretty well. The ball peg has pretty good range given the fact that there is a solid suit on it. This is how mine looked in the package. It had like that big lump in the chest. So here's the thing, you can pose it, but anytime you really put it in any pose, you're going to end up with some issues other than going straight forward, but then it creates this lump in the back. So you're going to kind of have to play with it to get it to look the way you want it to look without making it look weird, but it does have good range, and that's just the top torso joint, so that's pretty good. And you can rotate it around, but as you can see, as soon as you do that, the suit starts to twist and stretch, and it doesn't really want you to go any farther, so don't expect to rotate the upper torso very much. So let's see how the lower torso works. It actually leans really well. So, I mean, it doesn't look like a bunch, but that's pretty good. And on top of that, if you want to use the top one also, you can really bend him over pretty far. I mean, that's pretty good. We don't always even get that out of a normal figure, let alone a Hot Toy, so I am happy with that. You can lean him back a little bit, but it gets very tight for the suit, so don't expect to go too crazy with it. As far as going side to side on that lower torso, it doesn't really have anything. You can rotate it more. You can see, though, it starts to stretch down here, so it's very limiting in terms of the swivel. But if you do both at the same time, you can get, like, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees out of it, so it's probably, and if you really want to force it maybe a little more, that's probably good enough. I have to say the articulation on this guy is definitely one of the strong suits. It does work for the most part really, really well. For the hips, now they do tell you in the instructions to limit what you're going to do with them because you can't put them too far out to the side, that kind of thing. I think it works a little bit better than the instructions give it credit for. You do have to be careful because you don't want to tear the suit, and for some reason they keep making the crotches extra baggy without making them like have an extra panel of spandex or something in there. So you can see as soon as you start to move the leg, it does look like it's getting ready to split the seam, but if you're careful with how you do it, you can get the leg out even a little bit farther than 45. So I think that's okay. That's pretty good. You can move the legs forward pretty much all the way. I mean, really no problems there. I don't have any problem with that. That's pretty cool. We don't even get that sometimes on, like I said, traditional action figures. We do have a really nice thigh swivel in there. So here's what I have to say about the hips. They're definitely too wide, but the articulation works exceptionally well. So that's a good thing. For the knees, we have a double jointed knee, which works really well. And I'm guessing maybe that's why they went with the not so accurate knee pads to afford that, but they do work, so can't complain about the articulation. For the ankles, I don't know, man. It's just a double ball peg, and they work well enough. They're not great, but I guess they expected people to be posing him in the air only. So the ankles will support some dynamic poses on the ground, but mostly you're probably going to have them in the air due to the stand and due to the ankles not being that great. So overall, the articulation is better than most Hot Toys, if not better than all of the Hot Toys I've seen. Even some of the Spider-Man figures I've seen be a little bit more limited than this guy, so that's pretty good. So the big thing for me, the two things to take away from this review, I can get past the knee pads, I can get past some of the other little issues here and there. It's just that the hips are definitely too wide. It almost looks like a Mego figure. I mean, obviously it doesn't because of the detail and everything, but the hips are definitely too wide. And the eyes just, why didn't they give us more options with the eyes instead of a bunch of neutral eyes that almost look the exact same? You know, it's just little things like that that bug me on something like a Hot Toys figure, which you're shelling out lots of cash for. So ultimately, yes, it's a great figure. I like it a whole bunch. I just really hate that the hips are so wide and the chest is a little narrow. That's really the same issue, and then those eyes. So I do recommend it if you're a Deadpool fan or a Hot Toys fan. It's probably one of the better ones overall. You just have to be aware of those issues because, like I said, you're shelling out a lot of money for it, and you don't want to go into it blind. You need to know what to look for, and that's what you need to look for. So I do recommend it. I just recommend it with a little bit of caution because I have a feeling, now I have no idea, I haven't seen any reviews or anything for this, or I barely even talked to people about it, but I have a feeling because it's Deadpool, people are going to give it a lot of extra slack that it probably doesn't deserve, so just be aware of those issues. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. So you want to click that subscribe button, click that little bell button next to it, so that you can turn on notifications, so that you can see the action figure reviews, the movies, TV shows, video games, videos, all kinds of stuff like that. We're doing all kinds of things, so you want to come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.